During the first week of March, the PDAC was held in Toronto, Canada. This is the largest mining show in the world. It was during this period that Lake Victoria Mining Company took the opportunity to appoint a new director, Dr. David Webb, to the company's board. Coming up is a discussion between Dr. Roger Newell and Dr. David Webb.
David, it's a pleasure to be in Toronto. We're attending the famous Prospectors and Developers Association Exploration and Mining Conference. Has been going on now for, I don't know, close to 80 years. Dave, can you tell us a little bit about your educational background as well as your business background?
Yes, I started off at U of T in engineering and graduated with a geological engineering degree. Immediately went off to Queens to work on a master's on geological sciences under J. Hodgson, and I finished up with a PhD at the University of Western Ontario. But during this time, I was very involved in junior mining, and to be honest, I worked with some large companies, and I worked with the Geological Survey of Canada. So I started at the big broad base and worked my way to where the juniors, and you're a little bit more fleet of foot and you can have more of an impact. And I started with a company in Mongolia, actually, of all places, and as a consultant, and eventually took over as president. And I actually ran that company for 19.5 years. That project in Mongolia we brought to production. We came back to Canada and we started another project that I used to own. Vended that into the reconsolidated Mongolia Gold, and it became known as Taihe Gold. We built that up to over 2 million ounces of gold, completed a preliminary assessment, pre-feasibility study, and recently they've completed a feasibility study, and they're in the financing and final permitting stages.
Thank you very much for that.
Okay.
What is it that you find attractive about Lake Victoria?
Well, as you're aware, I started working as an independent for Lake Victoria, doing some 43101 work, which was my introduction to the country and the people and the projects. And I think that as I grew to become more comfortable and more aware of what's going on, I think what Lake Victoria has is exactly the kind of project that I personally like to go after. It's something that is near-term production if you need it to be, but it still retains that upside potential so that you're not giving away just a 5,000, 10,000, 20,000 ounce deposit. That these things are in an area where there's giants, and you could easily anticipate coming up with something that's millions of ounces, although it's not shown today.
It's a glimmer of gold, I think, that drives most of us into this business. How do you feel about a small company like Lake Victoria bringing us another gold deposit in a commodity that you're very comfortable with into production?
Well, it's no secret that I've always been a fan of production. I think the concept of exploring and building ounces and hope to get taken out by a large company, while a very valid concept, in today's environment is virtually impossible for 99.9% of the companies out there. I think it's very easy for small companies to raise production financing, develop, and bring a mine into production. I don't think that there was a single gold mine prior to maybe the 1960s that started production with a 1 million ounce resource. I think that's something that was brand new to the environment where we want to have these massive capital projects. And some of the biggest mines and most famous gold mines in the world were brought into production with well under 1 million ounces of gold. And I think Lake Victoria is well structured, well suited to go and bring some of their projects, which could be very large, but the first pass drilling has only gone down 100 meters. And you can still make a lot of money with a 50,000 ounce, 100,000 ounce, or a 1 million ounce deposit. Deposits that the market and the big guys aren't really interested in. So for the last 20 years, I've always worked on the focus to sprint to production. If you've got something, it's economic, it's well-defined, do that. And I like Lake Victoria's approach now, bringing Camel Iron Mining on to start working on their, albeit right now a small scale, you're dealing with an over 1 kilometer strike length of mineralization. It could easily turn into big scale.
You built mines similar to the ones that we want to build in Tanzania. And where were those mines, and about how similar were they?
Well, actually, I've built a number of mines, both privately and then with junior mining companies. Probably in the mid 1990s, I was president of Mongolia Gold, and we developed the Boombat mine in outer Mongolia. That was a 300 ton per day operation, open pit, and then planned to go underground. And it worked. Technically, it worked out quite well. Unfortunately, as you're aware, some governments sometimes change the rules once you have your invested capital, and then you can end up on the short end of the stick. With Camel Iron Mining, I was involved in building a property, bringing it into production, putting a 100 ton per day mill in. We operated that profitably for 7 years. And that's in the Northwest Territories. Very high grade underground mine. And I think the combination of open pit for the quick, low capital cost, return of your investment, and let's face it, this is a business. You've got to make money. And this is a way of turning an asset which looks pretty good into cash and using that to continue development and make that mine the size that it might actually ultimately be. I think that what I've experienced in the projects that I've brought into production or developed towards production, and in particular the work that I've done with Camel Iron Mining, we have a very good handle on what mining costs are. Jerry is one of the sharpest operators that I've come across in keeping the pencil sharp and making sure the numbers come in where they're supposed to be. I think the cost to mining and some of the work that Camel Iron's done already for Lake Victoria has shown that he's probably going to come under budget on what we think our mining costs are going to be. And the mining costs that we've scheduled out there could make it very economic should the prices play out the way we anticipate they might. I think cash flow is critical for any company today. The idea of being able to go back to the market for cash to continue operating is something that we're not seeing today, and I'm not sure we're going to see it anytime soon. So if we can do as we anticipate, if the small-scale mining project does as planned, free cash flow is critical, and Lake Victoria has targeted a way to do it.
Thank you very much for your comments. It's always a pleasure, and especially to be here in Toronto, one of the great mining centers of the world, and prospectors, of course, is our bullseye as far as this industry is concerned.
It's great to be here.
Okay.